Welcome to Stories with Gaming, where drama meets gameplay. From outrageous family secrets to quiet revenge, toxic friendships to moments of redemption, we cover it all, straight from Reddit's wildest threads. While the story unfolds, you'll see gameplay in the background, sometimes intense, sometimes chill, but always a perfect match for the chaos or calm of each tale. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for your daily update. Most houses hum. Ours hissed. It's hard to explain unless you've lived in a place like that. A house that looks normal, blue paint peeling, wind chimes clinking softly in the breeze, an old porch swing that croaked if you sat on it too fast, but feels like it's holding its breath all the time. There's a difference between quiet and silence. One is peaceful, the other is a warning. When I was 8, I started noticing the way sound worked differently in our house. How footsteps could make your whole chest clench. How my mom could clear her throat and freeze the room. How the click of a light switch after midnight could mean trouble. It was like the walls were always listening, and if you breathed too loud, they'd rat you out. We lived halfway down Elwood Lane, across from a lot where weeds grew taller than kids. In the summer, I'd sit on the curb and imagine I was looking at a wheat field, that I was one of those book kids who runs through golden grass and never looks back. I didn't know what freedom really felt like, but I was pretty sure it smelled like wildflowers and sounded like birds that weren't just trying to be louder than each other. Our house creaked like it had bad knees. Every board had a voice. You learned where to step and when. Sometimes I'd stand still for whole minutes just listening, not to anything in particular, just to make sure nothing was coming. That was the game. Stay invisible. Stay safe. My parents didn't beat us. Not in the way people think of when they hear that word. They didn't leave bruises. They left doubts. They carved little holes in your self-worth and filled them with silence or sarcasm, depending on the day. My dad, Ron, worked construction. At least, that's what he said. He'd leave before sunrise and come home covered in dust, always smelling faintly of beer and sweat, like the inside of a work truck. He wasn't loud, but he was heavy. His presence filled up a room even when he said nothing, especially when he said nothing. When he was mad, he didn't yell. He sighed, like you'd let him down in a way that was almost boring. And Mom, Janice, she was the kind of person strangers loved. She could flash a smile at the bank teller and make them forget she was 3 payments late. But at home, her affection was a kind of currency. You had to earn it, and the rules kept changing. Compliments were rare. Apologies? Never. She believed kids should be tough, and her way of toughening us up was like polishing stone with a hammer. That same year, Lexi turned 10. Lexi was hard to describe. Not because she wasn't vivid, she was fire in a bottle, but because she shifted so quickly. One second she was teasing me so sharply I wanted to disappear. The next, she was slipping a stolen cookie under my door with a note that just said, "Don't tell." She called me mosquito, said I buzzed around too much, that I always had this nervous energy, like I couldn't sit still. Always whining, she'd mutter. Always hovering. I hated it, but I never asked her to stop. I don't know why. Maybe I thought attention, even the annoying kind, was better than nothing. She'd trip me in the hallway. Take the last Pop-Tart. Tell the neighbor girl I still cried during thunderstorms, which I did. But when Dad looked at me too long, or when Mom started one of her emotional Cold Wars, Lexi would nudge me behind her without saying a word, like, back off. He's mine to torture, not yours. When I was 9, I remember waking up to the sound of the TV blaring downstairs. It was after midnight. I crept down, quiet as I could, and found Lexi sitting cross-legged on the couch, face lit up by the screen. She was watching some late-night cartoon, eating dry cereal out of the box. She didn't look up when she said, "You're supposed to be asleep." I heard something. I lied. You always hear something. She patted the couch. I sat. We didn't talk. Just watched this ridiculous show with a talking llama and some kind of alien cat. I don't remember the plot. I just remember feeling okay, like we were both pretending we were in a different house, one where this was normal. When I was 10, Lexi got detention for yelling at a teacher. Mom made her scrub the kitchen grout with a toothbrush. No yelling, no lecture. Just handed her the toothbrush and said, "Don't stop until the tiles are white again." I stood in the doorway and watched. Lexi's knees were red from the floor, her knuckles raw. I wanted to say something, but my throat locked. I just stood there, silently hating myself for being a coward. She never looked up. Later that night, she walked past me and flicked my ear. "Grow a spine, mosquito." But her voice cracked at the end. When I was 11, I started cleaning the bathroom every Saturday without being told. I thought maybe if I was helpful enough, they'd stop being so disappointed. They wouldn't say thank you. Not once. But if I missed a spot, oh, then I'd hear it. "You call that clean?" Dad said once, looking at the mirror with a smear I hadn't noticed. "You better pray you don't end up living in filth your whole life. Learn some pride." The irony didn't hit me until much later. Our home was cluttered with old takeout containers, mismatched chairs, and bitterness. But sure, yeah, I was the one who needed to learn pride. And the birthday, that was when I realized it wasn't just forgetfulness. It was intentional. When I was 11, I had this hope, this stupid, persistent kind of hope, that maybe this year they'd remember. Not just the date, but me, the person, their kid. I didn't ask for anything. I knew better than that. I didn't leave notes or make a countdown calendar or circle the day on the fridge. I just wore my favorite shirt, the one with the dinosaur on a skateboard, and cleaned my room extra well. I even lined up my shoes under the bed and made the pillow creases smooth like in commercials. I came downstairs, heart kicking in my chest like it knew better than I did. Mom was at the sink. Dad had already left for work. Lexi was shoveling cereal into her mouth, one leg propped on the chair like she paid rent. "Morning," I said softly. Mom didn't look up. "Put your laundry in the basket. I'm not your maid." That was it. No happy birthday. No wink. No card. No half-burnt slice of cake from a grocery store bin. Nothing. I stood there for a full 30 seconds. I counted. Like maybe if I waited long enough, the magic words would show up, slip out by accident. But the only sound was the clink of Lexi's spoon and the drip-drip of the faucet she never fixed. She knew. Lexi definitely knew. I'd seen her look at the calendar the day before, her eyes pausing on the little sticky note I'd drawn a star on. But she didn't say anything either. Later that night, I lit a candle in my room. Not a birthday candle, just one of those old cinnamon ones Mom kept in the bathroom. It smelled like cheap holidays. I stuck a crayon in the wax like it was some kind of makeshift candle and watched the color bleed into a brownish puddle. Lexi knocked once, didn't wait for permission. She walked in, looked at the crayon, looked at me, and said, "That's gonna stain." I didn't respond, just shrugged. She tossed something onto my bed. Half a granola bar, one of the good kinds with chocolate drizzle. "Happy birthday, loser," she muttered and turned to leave. I stared at it like it was treasure. She paused at the door. "Don't burn the house down. You'd still get grounded, even if it was your funeral." I laughed. Short, bitter. It caught in my throat. She didn't laugh with me, but I swear her shoulder dropped just a little, like she let go of something she'd been holding. The weeks after that felt quiet. Not the tense quiet we were used to, but something softer. Maybe because I'd stopped trying. Or maybe because Lexi had noticed. She didn't tease me as much. Didn't go out of her way to mess with me. Once, she even left me the last Pop-Tart. No note. No announcement. Just left it on the counter like it wasn't a big deal. But it was. I started to notice things too, like how she flinched when Mom's voice rose half an octave, or how she kept a fork in her room, hidden in a drawer, like she didn't trust the kitchen to still be hers. She had this one hoodie, oversized, frayed at the cuffs, that she wore almost every day. It used to be Dad's, but he gave it away after a big fight about some missing tools. Lexi found it in the donate pile and claimed it like it was armor. That hoodie had more stories than either of us did. One afternoon, when I was supposed to be doing homework, I heard shouting from downstairs. Not the usual kind. This was sharp, like glass. Something broke. I didn't know what. I just sat perfectly still, staring at the pencil in my hand like it could protect me. Later, Lexi came into my room without knocking. She was breathing hard. Not crying. Just that tight, shallow kind of breathing you do when you're trying not to. Her hands were shaking a little. She sat on the floor and leaned against the wall like she needed the house to hold her up. I didn't say anything. After a minute, she said, "You ever wish you were someone else?" I thought about that, about every book I'd read, every movie I'd watched, every dream I'd had of running away and changing my name. Yeah, I said quietly. All the time. She nodded like I'd passed some kind of test. Then she pulled out a crumpled candy bar from her hoodie pocket, broke it in half, and handed me a piece. It tasted like dust and cocoa and some kind of weird truce. When I was 12, I started getting good at pretending. Pretending to be asleep when the voices got sharp downstairs. Pretending to be focused in class when my head was somewhere else. Pretending I didn't care when Lexi slammed her door in my face or when Mom threw out my drawings because they were clutter. I stopped leaving my notebooks around. I stopped showing them anything. I started keeping things hidden. Not just my money, which I'd begun to save from birthday cards my grandma sent from out of state, but thoughts, feelings, hopes. They went in a box under my bed, scribbled into worn-out journals, or just filed away in my brain where nobody could reach. I didn't trust anyone to handle them gently. Not even Lexi. Not yet. But she was changing too. I could tell. Her grades were slipping, and Mom was on her case constantly. Why can't you be more like the Martinez girl? What kind of future do you think you're building? Staying up all night? You're going to end up cleaning toilets if you keep this up. I hated how she said it, like that was the worst thing a person could be. Lexi never snapped back. Not the way you'd expect. She just got quieter. Her eyes would go dull, and she'd drift somewhere else. Sometimes I wanted to reach out to ask her where she went when she disappeared like that. But I didn't. I was scared she'd tell me. The one upside is I met my friend Jamal. It was the kind of friendship that doesn't make sense on paper. He was loud, fast-talking, never wore the same socks twice, and always had at least 3 inside jokes going at the same time. Me? I was quiet. I flinched when people raised their voice. I kept my sentences short and my volume lower. But somehow, we clicked. It happened in the cafeteria, of all places. I was sitting alone, like usual, picking the crusts off my sandwich, and trying not to make eye contact with the 8th graders who like to throw stuff. Then Jamal slid into the seat across from me like he owned the world. He had peanut butter smeared on his cheek and a grin so wide I could see where his front tooth had chipped. "You look like someone who hates school lunch almost as much as I do," he said, shoving a crumpled bag of barbecue chips toward me. I blinked. Thanks?" "You don't talk much, huh?" he asked. "No." I said. "Cool, I talk enough for both of us." And that was that. We weren't instant best friends. Life isn't a movie. But we started sitting together, talking about video games we couldn't afford, books we pretended to read for class, teachers we ranked like video game bosses. He had this way of making things feel lighter, like the bad stuff didn't stick to him. A week after we met, he said, "So, what's your deal? You always look like you're waiting for an earthquake." I wanted to lie, to say something sarcastic or brush it off. Instead, I said, "My house is loud in all the wrong ways." He looked at me for a second, really looked. Then he nodded and said, "Yeah, my mom's like a walking fire alarm. Goes off even when there's no fire." That made me laugh. Actually laugh. Out loud. I hadn't done that in I don't even know how long. From then on, he was my person. One afternoon in 7th grade, we were hanging out in his apartment after school. His mom, Miss Carla, had just made grilled cheese and told us we could play games in the living room as long as you don't break anything important like my coffee table or your damn necks. Jamal booted up some ancient game console and I spotted the old laptop on the side table. It was thick, dusty, and covered in Spider-Man stickers. "You use that?" I asked. He laughed. "This thing? Nah, man, it's dying. Battery's trash, screen's cracked, and it makes this wheezing noise like it's got asthma. We're getting a new one next month. You want it?" I stared at him. "Seriously?" "Yeah. I mean, you're always scribbling stuff in those notebooks. Might as well have something with a keyboard. Besides, I like you. You don't eat all the snacks." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to hug him, but I didn't know how to do that without making it weird. So I just said, "Thanks." He waved it off. "It's yours once my mom sets up the new one. Just don't let it catch on fire." That laptop was a brick, sure, but it became my portal, my secret weapon. When I finally took it home a month later, carefully, like it might crumble if I breathed on it wrong, I cleaned it, updated what I could, and installed a basic trading platform I'd read about online. It wheezed, it lagged, The fan sounded like a dying raccoon. But it worked. That machine changed everything. Jamal and I didn't talk much about home. Not directly, but we had our code. When I was dragging, he'd say, "You want to crash at my place tonight? Mom made cornbread." I never said yes, but I never forgot the offer. When he saw a bruise on my arm that looked like more than clumsiness, he didn't ask. Just bumped me gently and said, "You need to get better at lying about falling down the stairs." He was funny, yeah, but he wasn't clueless, and he never treated me like I was broken. That was the difference. By 13, I stopped telling the truth at school. When teachers asked if everything was okay at home, I smiled and said, "Yeah, just tired." When the counselor caught me staring out the window during math and pulled me aside, I said, "Sorry. I was up late studying." When someone asked about the same hoodie I wore every day, I said it was my favorite. It wasn't a lie, technically. It was Lexi's old hoodie. She'd outgrown it, and I'd claimed it like a stray dog. It still smelled like her. Shampoo, old gum, that weird vanilla lotion she pretended not to like. It made me feel safe. Lexi had started to slip by then. Her jokes came with more edge. Her silences lasted longer. She got in trouble for skipping gym. Mom found a D on her report card and said, "Guess that's what happens when you waste your time reading garbage." Lexi didn't flinch. She just folded the report card neatly and walked away. Later that night, I found her outside on the back steps, sitting in the cold without a coat. She was smoking, or trying to. Her fingers were shaking too much to hold the lighter steady. I sat next to her without asking. She handed me the lighter. "Want to try?" I shook my head. "Nah." She smirked. "Smart. It tastes like shit anyway." We sat there, breathing in frost. Our breath curled like ghosts. She stared at the sky like it might swallow her whole. "Do you think we'll be like them?" She asked suddenly. Her voice was soft, but the question cut straight through me. I wanted to say no. God, I wanted to scream it, but I didn't know. And not knowing scared me more than anything. "I hope not," I said. She nodded, flicked the lighter one last time. It sparked, then went out. When I was 14, Lexi got suspended. Some kid made a comment about her clothes, called her thrift store trash in the hallway. I don't know exactly what happened next, but I know it ended with a broken nose, a cracked phone screen, and Lexi being dragged to the office by her backpack straps. Mom was furious. Not worried. Furious. "You're going to ruin your life," she snapped. "No one will hire a hothead. You're not special, Lexi. You're not strong. You're just angry." I waited for Lexi to fight back, but she didn't. She stood there, hair wild, lip bleeding, and said nothing. That scared me more than if she'd screamed. She didn't come out of her room for 2 days. On the 3rd day, I slipped a piece of toast under her door. She never mentioned it. But a few weeks later, I found my science notebook perfectly copied in her handwriting, with notes in the margins and doodles in the corners. That was Lexi's love language. Unspoken, unlabeled, and absolutely unmistakable. Around that time, I started thinking about money, not in a greedy way, in a survival way. I needed an exit strategy, a way to stack the deck so that when the time came, I could go. There was a gas station 2 towns over, just far enough that nobody from school would see me scrubbing toilets. I lied about my age, said I was 16. The manager, a guy named Pete with skin like beef jerky and teeth like piano keys, looked me up and down and said, "You know how to sweep?" I nodded. He tossed me a rag. "You start Saturday." I didn't tell Mom. I didn't tell anyone. I just got on the bus with 20 stolen quarters in my pocket and hoped no one noticed. That first shift nearly killed me. My feet ached, my hands stung, the bathroom smelled like someone had died in it twice. But at the end, Pete handed me a small envelope with $37 and said, "Don't spend it all in one place." I didn't spend a dime. That money went into a shoebox, which went under a loose floorboard in my closet. That box was my passport. My freedom fund. Every shift, every aching bone, every customer who barked at me for being too slow, it all went into the box. Every coin felt like a ladder rung. Back home, nothing changed. Or maybe it did, but so slowly we didn't notice. Mom was still cold. Dad was still invisible. Lexi was still angry. But now I had something they didn't know about. A way out. A future no one could burn. I'd lay in bed at night and count my savings like a prayer. $27. 62. 94 and a quarter. 107 plus a crumpled 5 from a tip jar. On and on. Climbing. That money wasn't just paper. It was proof. Proof that I didn't belong here forever. And Lexi, God, Lexi, she was still fighting invisible wars. But sometimes when she passed me in the hall, she'd squeeze my shoulder just once. No words. Just pressure. Like she was saying, not yet, but soon. When I was 15, I started walking differently. Not like I'd grown taller, though I had, a little, but with purpose. Like each step was taking me somewhere. Somewhere far from that house on Elwood Lane. Somewhere no one rolled their eyes when I spoke, or made me feel like I had to apologize for existing. I wasn't just working at the gas station anymore. I was studying. Not school stuff. That barely held my attention. I was reading about stocks, investment strategies, compound interest. I didn't even understand half the terms at first, but I copied them into a notebook and circled them until I figured them out. It started one night when the register at the gas station went down, and Pete left me alone behind the counter while he smoked in the alley. I pulled out the busted store tablet, loaded up a grainy video on how to buy your first stock, and something just clicked. It felt like numbers I could control, like a system that didn't change its rules based on how someone was feeling that day. I didn't have much to invest, just the crumpled tips from the jar, plus a few 20s I'd snuck from my last 2 shifts. But I opened a free trading account on an old laptop Jamal's mom gave me when they upgraded theirs and bought my first stock. A tiny, stupid company I found on a Reddit thread. I watched it rise, then drop, then rise again. I was hooked. Not on the money, not yet on the possibility that maybe, if I was smart enough, patient enough, obsessed enough, I could turn a handful of dollars into a key, one that unlocked a new life. Not just for me, but maybe for Lexi too. At home, things were getting harder to ignore. Dad had started drinking more, or maybe I was just more aware of it. His eyes were glassy most nights. He'd mumble things under his breath that I couldn't always catch. One night, I passed him in the hallway, and he muttered, "Don't screw up like I did." I didn't ask what he meant. He wouldn't have told me. Mom had turned into a ghost with sharp edges. She floated through rooms like smoke, but if you bumped into her, if you crossed her, she'd cut you. Lexi bore most of that now. There was some kind of cold war going on between them, a standoff full of backhanded compliments and slammed cabinets. But Lexi had changed too. She still wore that ratty hoodie, but she started carrying books in her backpack again. Not school books. Novels. Big, bruising ones. The Bell Jar. Speak. White Oleander. She'd underline passages and fold corners like they were maps. Sometimes I'd see her reading on the roof, just sitting there like a gargoyle, eyes scanning pages as if she was trying to solve herself. I asked her once, "What's it about?" She didn't look up. A girl trying not to disappear. That stuck with me. School was a blur by then. I kept my head down, did just enough to pass. My teachers called me quiet, distracted, capable but disconnected. No one ever asked why. Well, almost no one. Miss Keating, my math teacher, pulled me aside after class one day and said, "You have a brain for systems. Ever thought about finance?" I lied and said no. I didn't want anyone knowing what I was building. It felt like something sacred, something fragile. Like if too many people looked at it, it might vanish. She smiled anyway. "Well, if you ever want to learn more, I've got old textbooks. Just ask." I never did ask. But it meant something that she offered. Jamal was still around, still my friend. He had his own chaos at home, not the same kind as mine, but loud in its own way. His mom, Miss Carla, loved him fiercely, even if she was exhausted all the time. "You ever need a bed?" she told me once. "I got you." I never took her up on it, but just hearing it made my ribs loosen. Jamal was the first person I told about investing. We were sitting on the bleachers after gym, eating terrible vending machine cookies, and I just blurted it out. "I'm buying stocks." He looked at me like I'd said I was learning to juggle knives. "Are you serious?" "Yeah." "How?" I explained what I knew, fast and clumsy. He didn't laugh, just said, "Damn, bro, you're trying to be rich." I shook my head. "I'm trying to get out." He didn't press, just nodded, passed me his last cookie, and said, "Bet." That year, my shoebox fund passed $500, then $1,000. I started taking shifts on school nights. Pete didn't care. He barely remembered my name most days. I'd show up, mop floors, wipe counters, sneak in trades on the store's Wi-Fi, and go home reeking of gasoline and stale donuts. I was tired all the time, but in a good way. like I was building something. Lexi noticed. "You're never home," she said once, sitting on the edge of my bed, flipping through one of my notebooks. I'd been careless and left it open. Charts, price trends, scribbled thoughts. It looked like the diary of a madman with a calculator addiction. "You gonna be a banker or something?" I shrugged. "Investor, maybe." She raised an eyebrow. "That sounds fake." "It's real." She smiled, just barely. "Good. Get rich and buy me out of this hellhole." I laughed. "That's the plan." She didn't laugh with me, but her eyes softened, like she believed me, or maybe just wanted to. That night, she knocked on my door again, something she hadn't done in years. "You know," she said, half hidden in the hallway light, "if you get out first, don't forget me." I looked at her. Pale skin, hoodie sleeves pulled over her hands, chin trembling like a secret. "I won't." She nodded once and disappeared into the dark crescent. By the time I was 16, I knew how to disappear. Not in the dramatic way. I didn't fake my own death or hitchhike across state lines. But I'd gotten real good at pulling pieces of myself back, one at a time, until I was just a shadow in my own house. I barely spoke at dinner when I was there. I did my laundry at night. I learned how to walk without making a sound. It wasn't fear exactly, it was preparation. I was building an exit. Every day, every trade, every dollar that went into the shoebox or the savings account I opened under Jamal's mom's name, all of it was a brick in the tunnel I was digging out of that house. Investing had stopped being a curiosity. It was a language now. I understood it better than I understood people. Numbers didn't lie. Trends made sense. People, not so much. But patterns I could trust. I stopped betting on memes and started reading financial reports. Learned how to spot volatility. Took stupid risks sometimes just to feel the blood rush. But even my losses taught me something. I lost $83 on a bad crypto tip and didn't sleep for 2 nights. After that, I got surgical. By 17, I'd turned $2,300 into a little over $5,800. It wasn't buy a house money, but it was leave and never come back money, and that was enough. Lexi noticed the change. She didn't say anything directly. That wasn't her style. But she'd started watching me more closely, like she could feel something shifting in the room. "You look different," she said once, squinting at me like I'd grown another head. I was organizing printouts of my portfolio in a binder. "Taller?" "No," she said. "Colder." I didn't know how to answer that, so I didn't. She sat beside me, looked at the graphs. "You're really doing this." "Doing what?" "Leaving." I shrugged. "I never said that." "You didn't have to." She didn't cry. She didn't beg me to stay. She just tapped one of the charts and said, "Don't get cocky with penny stocks. They'll gut you." That was her way of saying, "I see you. I still believe in you. Just don't screw it up." Graduation day came hot and heavy with the smell of lawn chairs and bad sound systems. I wore a borrowed gown and a crooked cap and smiled for pictures no one took. My name was called. I crossed the stage. No one clapped except Jamal and his mom, who stood in the back row and whistled like she was at a basketball game. I didn't look for my parents. I didn't expect them there. And they didn't surprise me. I walked off the field, straight into the parking lot, tossed my cap into the trunk of a beat-up hatchback I bought in cash the week before, and left. Just like that. No last look at the house, no note, no tears. I drove 3 towns over to a rented room above a hardware store. It had one window, a hot plate, and a broken lock I fixed myself. I unpacked my clothes, my binders, my laptop, set the toaster oven on the floor next to my mattress, and sat there. It didn't feel like freedom yet. It felt like waiting. But it was mine. I worked 3 jobs that first summer. Grocery clerk, freelance blog writer, part-time delivery driver. I didn't sleep much. I barely ate. I'd set alarms to check pre-market openings and fall asleep with my phone still buzzing with updates. But the money came. Slowly, then faster. Every time I looked at my account balance, I thought about the hallway between our bedrooms back on Elwood Lane. How Lexi would sit there sometimes, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at the carpet like it held secrets. I remembered what she said. "If you get out first, don't forget me." I didn't. I came back for her in the fall. She was standing in the driveway, arms crossed, hoodie sleeves half pulled over her hands. Same one she'd been wearing for years. She didn't look surprised to see me, just tired. "You got taller," she said. "You got quieter." She snorted. "Liar." I opened the passenger door. She didn't move. "What about them?" she asked, jerking her chin toward the house. "They're not coming," I said. She stared at the screen door, waiting for it to open. It didn't. Then she got in. No suitcase, no note. Just Lexi, raw and ready. I drove us back to the room above the hardware store. She sat on the mattress, knees to chest, while I heated up a pizza and pretended the hum of the mini fridge was music. Neither of us said much that first night, but I left the bathroom light on, just in case she needed it. The next morning, I slid a folder toward her across the table. Inside, a prepaid tuition statement for community college. Sociology. Just the first semester. She didn't ask how I paid for it. She just looked at me and said, "You're still a mosquito." And then, for the first time in a long time, she smiled. Lexi didn't speak for the first few days. Not about home. Not about school. Not about anything deeper than, "We need more toothpaste," or "This pizza's trash." I didn't push. I just made sure there was always food in the fridge, clean towels on the bed, and quiet when she needed it. On the third night, I came home from a double shift and found her sitting at my desk with a stack of community college brochures spread out like tarot cards. She looked up and said, "So, sociology?" I nodded. "You always notice people." I figured it fit. She stared at the pages like they might catch fire. "You know that makes you a giant nerd, right?" "Undeniably." But she didn't look away from the papers. Her fingers traced the edge of the page like she was afraid it might disappear. That's how I knew she wanted it, even if she couldn't say it yet. She started classes the following week. I bought her a secondhand laptop. It was slower than mine, no stickers, but it booted up. That's what mattered. I watched her take notes like her life depended on it, highlighting everything, color coding, obsessive. She studied like someone who'd had things ripped away and didn't trust the world to give them back again. And yeah, it was hard. She failed a quiz early on and almost dropped the class. She called herself stupid. I'd never seen her cry so quietly. I didn't tell her to suck it up. I just made hot tea, handed her a pack of highlighters, and sat beside her while she read the chapter again. Word for word. Until it clicked. Meanwhile, I was working 3 jobs and managing a small portfolio that had started to turn heads online. I ran a finance blog under a fake name, posted breakdowns of small cap stocks, side hustle guides, and market recaps written like I was texting a friend. People liked it. A couple brands reached out. I sold a few ebooks. Eventually, I started consulting on the side. Nothing flashy, just quiet growth. Momentum. At night, when the world got still, I'd watch Lexi sleeping on the second mattress we hauled into the apartment. She kicked off the blankets, snored softly, still clutched her hoodie like a lifeline, but her breathing was easy now. No flinches, no locked jaws. That's when I realized this was the real beginning. Not the day I left Elwood Lane, not even the day she came with me, but now, when she was safe enough to sleep without fear. Then the letter came, typed, formal, signature at the bottom in Mom's sharp, slanted handwriting. I found it on the floor by the door. No return address, just our names. It said things like, "We did our best. You don't understand the pressures we were under. We were hard on you because life is hard. If we were perfect, you wouldn't be where you are now." Lexi read it first. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't cry. She just folded it back up, slid it under her coffee mug, and said, "Classic." I asked if she wanted to reply. She didn't. "I already left," she said. "They just haven't accepted it yet." I did reply, eventually. One sentence. "We survived you, not because of you." I never got a second letter. Years passed. Not all at once, in inches. Lexi graduated with a degree in sociology. She's in grad school now, working part-time at a local shelter, running support groups for kids who remind her of us. She laughs more. Still calls me mosquito sometimes, but only when I've done something soft, like over-seasoning popcorn or tearing up during movie trailers. She doesn't wear the hoodie anymore. I bought her a coat, a real one, heavy, warm, expensive. She tried to protest. I told her to shut up and take the gift. She did, and for once, she looked like she belonged in the world. As for me, I invest, full-time. I run a boutique firm now, just me, a couple remote partners, and a growing list of clients who don't know that the guy helping them build wealth once hid cash under the floorboards of a house with rotting pipes and invisible bruises. Sometimes I drive past Elwood Lane. The house looks the same. Smaller. The paint's worse now. The porch sags harder, I never stop. Just keep driving. Because I don't need to go back to remember. Everything I need to know is already here. Sitting across from me at a cheap diner table, telling me how her professor cried when she shared her final paper. Laughing. Alive. There's a phrase I read once, you can be the first tree in a burned forest. I didn't understand it at the time. I do now. Because some days, I still feel scorched. I still wake up ready for a fight that never comes. Still hear a raised voice in a grocery store and feel my heart bolt like a spooked animal. Still flinch when someone praises me like they're setting a trap. But other days, I feel roots. Not deep yet. Not steady. But there. Lexi teaches now. Not at a school. At a youth program we helped open just outside the city. Free mental health support, job training, workshops on everything from taxes to boundaries. The kind of place we could have used growing up. The kind of place no one thought to build for kids like us. She runs it like she runs her life. Direct, fiery, and quietly tender. The walls are full of color. Her office has a whiteboard that says, "Healing is not linear, but it's still progress." She keeps the first letter Mom ever wrote in a drawer. Not because she forgives it, not exactly, but because it reminds her of the bridge she didn't cross. I work out of a loft now. Big windows, bad coffee, too many plants. I take on clients who grew up like I did, people trying to break cycles, build something solid. I walk them through IRAs like I'm explaining how to defuse a bomb. Gentle, careful. I'm good at what I do. Not because I love money, but because I hate how it was used against us, how it kept us trapped, and I want other people to know they don't have to live like that. A few months ago, I got a call. It was Dad, Ron. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. Maybe curiosity, maybe closure. His voice was older, less bark, more static. He said, "I saw your name on something. Thought I'd check in." I didn't say much, just listened. Eventually he muttered, "You turned out okay." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "I turned out in spite of you, not because." He didn't argue, just sighed. We didn't know what we were doing. I nodded. Not for him, for myself. Neither did we, but we figured it out anyway. That was the last time we spoke. Lexi and I bought a house last year, not a mansion, just a modest, crooked little place with a backyard and a creaky porch swing, the good kind. The kind that invites you to sit for a while. It smells like coffee in the morning and garlic in the evening. The walls are covered in art, some from kids at her center, some from thrift stores, some from days we got brave and painted things ourselves. There's laughter here, a lot of it. We still argue, still shut doors a little too hard sometimes, still wake up from dreams that don't feel like dreams. But we talk, we apologize, we name things, we unlearn, we build. Every day, we build. Sometimes, a kid from her program stays with us for a while, just until they find their feet. We don't ask questions. Just make up the guest room, leave snacks where they can see them, and let them sleep in. One of them asked me once, "What do you call this? Like, this thing you guys are doing?" And I said, "Family." Because that's what it is. Not the kind you inherit, the kind you create, the kind that heals. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. If you want to share your stories, please comment below. Additionally, what is your opinion on the poster's decision?